Welcome, everybody. Welcome to I wouldn't say it's my first solo podcast episode. I haven't done one in a while. I haven't live streamed solo in a while, but I've been feeling like I have some things I want to talk about. I've been kind of quiet about what's going on in my life, and I'm coming out of this reflective time where I had 5 months off of not working. And I want to talk about how that's impacted me financially, my feelings around it, and what I've learned. So, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Sandra Park. I'm an engineer and a financial coach. And just to set the stage for some of the things I'm going to talk about, um, so I'm going to go over my spending, what I spent every month, not line by line, but just totals and talk about maybe some of the expenses that came up, what I actually had to pull out of my savings, what I invested during this time, and then what was my net worth change. And then, of course, reflections and lessons and things I've learned. And why am I doing this? Because why expose any of this and put any of this out there? Well, I feel it's only appropriate because I'm a financial coach and I do tend to look at my finances a lot. But I have to admit, during this time period from middle of April, when I quit my job, April 18th, to the end of last month, I was barely looking at my finances. I wasn't really looking at my budget. I was looking at my finances through my Monarch dashboard, kind of looking at the overall high level view, but I was too scared to look at my finances. And who can relate to this? I'm sure many people can relate to there are times when you don't want to look at your finances, so it's easier to not look at it. And for me, being a diligent budgeter since about 2016, and I admit I probably would look at my finances and my budget almost daily or every other day since 2016. Earlier this year, I did switch to using more of an app that would pull in the transactions and categorize them. But up to that point, I was really looking at every single transaction, categorizing them myself. And every dollar, and then I switched to every dollar premium. Right now, I currently use Monarch. I really like Monarch. But to set the stage, yes, I quit my job April 18th of this year, 2025. It wasn't a hugely planned decision. I would say I knew about a month in advance, right? So this wasn't like I wasn't let go. This wasn't like I was planning intentionally to leave my job in April 2025, but things just came to a head. And I gave notice, and my final date was the middle of April. I want to stress that it's not a decision to be taken lightly or in a rash manner. And that's not just from a financial perspective. It's just how I am about everything in life. I'm very strategic. I like to think things out. And I will say, I've never, ever in my life quit a job without having another job lined up. So that is very, very unlike me for people that know me. Whenever I'm quitting, I'm going to another job, and it's usually a strategic career job move where I feel there's something that's leading me to go to the next job. But this time, I quit my job without having anything else lined up. And I was a bit burnt out. I was a bit stressed out. And I knew I wanted to take some time off and really reflect on what I wanted to do next in my career, what I wanted to do next in life. So I just want to emphasize that because I did get some messages from people where people were saying, "Yeah, I should quit my job. I'm unhappy at my job." And I'm like, "No, no, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say anytime you're upset about something at work, go quit your job. I'm saying because I was in a good financial position, set up really well financially where I could quit a job and go without income for a while. And yes, I do have a business, but I admit most of my income comes from my salary W 2 engineering day job." And I had to reflect on my own finances during this time of not drawing a salary and what it meant, right? And I struggled with a little bit with my identity. And I think part of why I didn't want to look at my finances during this time period was there's this feeling of I'm not generating a lot of new income coming in, and it felt scary to open everything up and really analyze what I was spending. I knew I was overspending in a lot of categories, right? And to be honest, during this time period, I was I was trying to live my life a bit more. I was trying to enjoy. I went on some nice vacations. I said yes to a lot of things because I realized I have this time off. I don't always take a lot of time off from work. So why shouldn't I go do things I want to go enjoy? So it was a little bit like a taste of mini retirement. I haven't taken a long career break since the last time was 2016. In 2016, I took a year off, but that was a very different situation where I thought I had a job lined up and it didn't pan out as fast as I thought. So I didn't intend to take a whole year off, but it just turned into taking a whole year off. This one was more like I wanted to take some time off and reflect and decide where I was going to go next. And I was kind of thinking it might have lasted 6 months to maybe a year. I wasn't quite sure going into it, but um, I did have some business finances. And just to set the ground rules about that, I have business expenses and business finances. I was generating some business income. So the finances that I'm talking about here is just personal finance. I keep the business finances separate. And I do have a son, for those of you that don't know, and he lives with me. He's 19. But I really, since he's been 18, I don't have him in my budget that much anymore. I used to have a line item where there's money allocated for just him, but now because he's an adult and he's working, he pays for his own incidentals, his own haircuts, gas, and all that. He works, he's in college. So that's not a huge factor. Even though he did have college come up this semester, that gets paid out of the 529. So school expenses are separated out, business expenses are separated out. And the other huge thing that helped me and gave me some peace going into this time of not generating a lot of income, for those of you that don't know, is I have my house paid off. So the largest expense that most people have in their monthly budget is their house mortgage or rent payment. I do not have that anymore. So that's another reason why you're going to see like some of the expenses or monthly spending might look low, but imagine you didn't have a house payment. It's totally different, game changing, right? I also had a fully funded emergency fund for about 10 months of living expenses going into this. But when I knew I had about that month left of working, I did divert some extra money into savings and not investing in preparation for this time off. And the last check I did get from work, I did have a lot of vacation paid out to me. So that was like an extra large check. So that was also another nice kind of little bonus on top of that. But yes, let's get into the monthly spending. So, what I thought going into this time off, because I've budgeted so diligently, my baseline budget, what I call a baseline budget, is my normal spending if there's no other crazy things happening. So for me, it's a little under, it's close to about $3,000 a month. So it's around, let's just round it up to 3,000. So I was anticipating about $3,000 of spending a month going into this time of not working. But I'm including all of April, even though I worked half of April. So in April, my spending was $4,569.66. In May, it spiked way up. So May was the first full month I had off of course, not that I was like necessarily like celebrating being off of work, but I was a little bit, and I did upgrade some things in my house. I did treat myself to some nice things. So May, my spending went up to $7,335.08. In June, it went down a little bit to $5,067.76. In July, it went to $5,565.27. And then August, oh, hold on. August, this is the shocking thing. This is where it went way back down and went close to what I normally spend for a month. It was $2,265.99. But I will also say in August, I overspent restaurant eating out by $462, which when I got that alert in Monarch, that alarmed me. And I went to go look at my budget, but then I realized how much I normalized back down over time. And this is over years of diligent budgeting. And I got close back down to my baseline budget. I'm going to try to share the screen to show you. Hold on. Show you on a chart. But yes, what did I learn from this, from looking at my numbers? First of all, it was way, way scarier than I thought to look at them. But when I actually looked at them, they weren't as bad as I thought. And I also realized in times of transition, so in this time of me not working, my expenses did normalize over time, closer back down to my baseline budget, right? So in the beginning, I was buying a lot of things, I was doing a lot of outings. But if I probably went on even longer of not being employed, my spending would be closer to that $3,000 a month. And then I did the average of what I spent monthly over those 5 months, and my average was about $5,000. So $5,000 versus what I thought would have been $3,000. And like I was talking about, in retirement, you don't draw on an income. And if you think about how this gives you information when you take these short periods of time off, what your spending could look like. I do think that was a bit high, the close to $5,000 a month. And when I go into some of the things I spent on, you'll see why. And I think if I was actually not working even longer, it would actually average and trend down than that 5,000. But now I know if I were to take another sabbatical, another career break, maybe well, if I retired close to this time now, that would be kind of a baseline. I would probably budget more for about $5,000 a month, or maybe $4,000, rather than the $3,000, which is a bit low, right? And then during this time period, I withdrew only, this shocked me too, because I looked at how much my savings account had gone down, because I had done different little transactions and withdrawals from it over this 5-month time period, but I wasn't sure exactly how much I took out. I took out close to $14,000. So about 5 months, I took out close to $14,000. But this is the amazing thing. I looked at how much my net worth had changed during this time period. And remember, I don't have any liabilities. I don't have any debts. I don't have any credit card payments. I don't charge anything on credit cards. I pay everything cash. I do have a home here in Texas that I own. But I'll talk about that too, how that kind of factored into the net worth change. My net worth over this time period has gone up $307,000. So that's crazy when you think about that over this time frame of me not working, how hard my money was working for me. And for those of you that think that I had a house that went up a lot. No, actually, it didn't. I was actually looking at my house value during this time frame, and it's gone down a tiny bit. And then, of course, I have cars, and cars are typically not appreciating assets, and mine certainly aren't. I have older cars, they're used, they have a lot of miles on them. And even though I have them linked up in my Monarch dashboard, my cars went down in value, my houses went down in value. So, really, the bulk of that net worth change was my investments. So if you think about it, I am at the point where my investments, my money is working harder than I can work. So that was almost half a year I had off where my net worth still grew over $307,000. I do also want to caveat as that was a time period when the stock market was doing really, really well. So, the first part of the year from January to April, it was looking pretty grim. And then April, it started really looking up. So not typical. I'm not going to say like every single, half a year, my net worth's going to go up that much, but that's what it was for this time period, $307,000. So I'm going to talk about what did I spend on during this time period. And I did, like I said, I really didn't scrimp. I lived a lot of life. I tried to enjoy as much as I can. I did 2 vacations. I did one vacation with my son that was 11 days in Mexico, first time I've ever been to Mexico. And then I did a solo vacation to East Texas. I had 3 birthdays during this time frame. Not mine. I mean, well, I did have mine. My son's birthday, my sister's birthday, and my birthday. So that's just part of life, right? Those things happen. I fixed the air conditioning on my car. I don't remember how much that cost. It wasn't terribly expensive, but it was really nice because it's really, really hot here in Texas. So when your air conditioning is not working well, it's hard to get around. I did cash flow a dental appointment. I don't have dental insurance right now, so I paid the cash out of pocket price for a dental appointment. I did self pay into a medical share program during this entire time so that we had some medical coverage. I didn't cut off any subscriptions during this time frame. I actually increased the number of subscriptions I had. I did turn on Netflix and some other streaming services that I normally don't always have throughout the year. I thought about cutting off the Spotify, but I actually missed it so much that I turned it back on again. I prepaid my lawn care, lawn maintenance for the entire year. It was cheaper to prepay it for the entire year. I actually have a patch of grass that's finally growing. So I think it's worth it. I've never paid for lawn maintenance care, but I think it's really paying off. I had a really big semi-annual insurance payment hit back in June. This is where I pay my home insurance for the entire year, my umbrella insurance, and then I pay 6 months of car insurance during that time frame. I bought a retreat. I prepaid for a retreat in October in Miami. I went to a business conference, me and my son, I paid for that. We went to a couple of concerts. So I was really just enjoying life and lots of eating out, to be honest. So what did I learn about all this from this time frame? Your feelings about money don't always match the reality. So I always tell people you have to look at the numbers. And it might be scary to look at them, but in my mind, I had this impression that I was wildly overspending and I was, I needed to get back to work and there was this anxiety around I needed to generate some money. But because I was so financially stable, I really didn't look for a job most of this sabbatical. I set a certain time frame where I said I'm going to look for a job and that's when I'll start, but up to that time I'm going to just enjoy being off and resting and relaxing and getting clarity and being refreshed. I actually set that time frame for the end of August, and then the middle of August I started kind of doing what I call research. I started researching around about jobs and I landed a job way faster than I thought, even though I wouldn't say I was like actively searching. I was just kind of mentally preparing myself. I was just seeing what was out there on the market. and I hadn't job searched in a while. So I'm really, really fortunate that I was able to not have to be preoccupied looking for a job during this time off, because looking for a job is a job in and of itself. Let's be honest. Even the short amount of time that I was doing in that research phase and looking for a job, you spend a lot of time doing that. Your mental energy goes there. So I was able to hold off and look for a job when I wanted to look for a job. I also learned it's easy to panic when you think you're overspending, but sometimes you have to zoom out. So, to give you an example, when I saw that notification that I way overspent in August on restaurants, you have to remember August was my lowest spending of all the 5 months. I spent $2,265.99 for the entire month. It's also about giving yourself grace during these transition times. Another big transition time that a lot of people worry they're overspending in is when people move. When people move somewhere, there's just a lot of incidentals, a lot of deposits for things that have to get turned on, storage fees, moving fees, all that type of stuff. But if you are budgeting, you'll actually see over time, you'll go back down to your normal spending. It's just that period of transition where you might be spending more. So now I know anytime I'm not working, there will probably be these 3 to 4 months where my spending's a bit higher than normal, but then I'll probably acclimate and go back down. Also, this is a reminder that net worth is a much better holistic measure rather than fixating on daily expenses, your monthly budget. Certainly, I know it's scary to look at your net worth if you're in the negative. So, net worth is assets minus liability. So, assets is anything you own that's growing, and net worth, which is usually investments, house. It can be cars. My cars don't appreciate in value. Houses usually appreciate in value. Investments appreciate in value. And liabilities are any money you owe: credit cards, student loans, medical payments, all that type of stuff. So when I zoom out and I look at my net worth, overall, I'm doing well. And it's so much more than just my monthly spending or day to day spending. I also learned that financial security really let me have a peace of mind during this time off to not stress out about looking for a job this entire time, to not stress out too much about my spending. Like I said, I was able to say yes to so many things and not just think about the cost or worry about, is this going to financially devastate me? I wanted this time off where I could enjoy a bit of life, and also to remember that rest isn't wasted time. It's an investment in yourself. It's an investment in your physical health, your mental health. And the other thing I realized is boundaries matter a lot. So when you don't have work, which occupies whatever 8 to 10 hours of your day, that leaving, you know, the bulk of your day means that other things can rush in, right? And when you don't pick what you want to do and what you want to say yes to and what type of meetings you want to do, life will come at you and it will suck up all the time and energy out of you. So I really got even better about saying no to things that I felt didn't serve me in this time period. It's not that I'm saying no forever. Some of them is just I'm not doing it right now. But I also learned that you can be polite and gracious when you're saying no. You can always leave the door open. You don't want to be mean to people, but it's also mean to not get back to people too. So it's letting people know what you can handle in this time period. But the other thing I realized over time was when I first was off, I wanted to say yes to everything. And I admit I got burnt out on just doing coffee dates and networking chats. And I did a little too much of saying yes to everything. And at the beginning of my sabbatical, I thought I was going to be wildly productive in business. I thought I was going to do all these podcast episodes and do YouTube videos and be cranking out all these newsletters and building all this content. but I just didn't do it because I didn't really feel like it during that time frame. And I think that's okay to realize that there are seasons. It doesn't mean I'll never, ever, ever do these things, but it's okay to say no to things for a certain time frame. But I swung over to the other side where I realized it's good to have structure. It's good to have reasons to get out of your house. It's good to schedule some coffee dates. It's good to schedule chats with friends. Um, I found when I didn't have anything scheduled, that didn't feel good either. So there has to be this happy medium, and I think everyone has to figure out what it is for themselves. For me, it was really ideal to have 3 to 5 coffee chats a week. And I like to kind of, I know this odd. I like to spread them out. I like to give my energy to doing a really good coffee chat with someone once a day rather than doing them all back to back. Other people may be able to do several back to back, or they may have the capacity to do more like 10 or 15 a week. But for me, the sweet spot was to talk to about 3 to 5 people a week. They're mostly people that I've already talked to previously and formed some type of relationship. So it was more about deepening those friendships, relationships, checking in, seeing what they're doing, updating people on what's going on with me. So, yeah, I think everyone has to figure that out for themselves. What is that right balance for them? But maybe me just being a little bit of type A, it felt good to have certain things scheduled and certain commitments on the calendar. And also, yeah, I just was able to say yes to so many new things during this time frame. I went to a business conference with my son for the very first time. I went to a concert. I'm not a big music person. I never really understood why people would go to live music, but now I kind of get it. I do get it. So I understand there's a difference between watching the YouTube video of, a concert or a singer, and then experiencing it live with all these other people that are enjoying the same experience, enjoying that music. I took my very first solo vacation. I hope to take many, many more. It was only a few days and it wasn't really that far away, but it was outside of the Metroplex and it was at a lake house and it was beautiful. It was also my very first time in Mexico that I took that vacation with my son, and I really underestimated Mexico. So close to me. I need to take more trips down there and explore more of that country. But yeah, those are all my insights and money revelations from this time frame as I'm going into a day job again and being an engineer. That's going to start up in about less than 2 weeks. I'm really glad I was able to do some more live streams and solos and podcast episodes. But I hope you learned something from my experience. If you ever want to chat about it, feel free to message me. And thank you so much for listening to me.